Well, of course, Cochran shot him. Cochran carried a sniper rifle, so he just fired one round. Well, of course, I'm really excited, and here's some people coming out of the building. So I just, M16, I just sprayed the building. And we ran like hell back to a rendezvous point that we had already predetermined. Well, my weapon was empty because I fired all the rounds, which you're not supposed to do. So I'm rooting around trying to find another magazine. And finally, I get another magazine. I dropped the old one out and I slapped it in and pulled back to rechamber a round. And while I'm standing there, I thought I was standing on a stick. Well, it was an enemy soldier in a hole, and I was standing on his AK-47. So he started pulling on it. Like I said, I wouldn't even tell this story if it wasn't, actually a, historical record. So of course, all 20 rounds, right? The adrenaline is flowing, and I just squeezed the trigger, pointed down, and knew just what it was. To this day, I can still see, because of the muzzle flash, I could still see the guy's, face lit up. That's all I saw was his face. And of course, he had this shocked look on his face, like, that's the last thing he saw. Anyway, we ran back to our command post, which was a small stone temple out in the opening, out in the field. Just a small building. I don't know if it's a Buddhist temple, maybe, but it had this, didn't have glass window, but it had, fancy stonework window. My lieutenant, his eyes were this big. He could not believe that after hearing all the gunfire, that we made it back. And said, what's going on? And I told him a little bit about it, and he handed me a starlight scope and said, let's, find some targets, because obviously they're coming after you. So I walked up, it's just 2 steps up. I walked up and I'm looking through this window that was not just a yard or so from the door. I walked up and I'm looking at the starlight scope and directing fire. I see movement. There was a well out there that looked like 3 Mile, and remember that, like a nuclear, it kind of looked like that. It was a well. And he could just barely see that. And I'd say a little to the left of the well or whatever. Anyway, he saw no more targets, and my adrenaline was flowing like crazy, like it is right now. I got up and went over to the far corner of the building, squatted down right in the corner, lit a cigarette. I needed a smoke, after all that. About that time, the window exploded, because that little bit of light, they're sitting there with an RPG waiting to see something, and they saw that little bit of light and it exploded through the window. I stepped and crawled over the debris, and we got out with the rest of the guys. They were kind of on line on either side of the building, and we headed back to it's about 200 yards, back to our wood line where we had set up. And of course, there we were interviewed by the historical group that travels with us and writes some things down.